Hi, this is video number 5 of your October 21st, 2020 course for Math 565M. I really hope you took some time to enjoy and dig deep into the reading. The protocol that was presented is one that we are going to be using this evening and also one that you will be expected to use during your lesson plan. Before we dive into the specifics of the protocol, I want you to remember some ideas about classroom discourse. So when we think about classroom discourse or discussions, we want to be creating and facilitating an environment for mathematical discourse where students participate, actively make sense, and grow their math power. This is truly the art of teaching. And discourse is specific to academic discussions, right? So we're talking about academic discussions, making conjectures, testing out ideas and hypotheses, and also just linking together many different ideas and making connections to help empower students for when they encounter another problem. And as teachers, we want to elicit and respond to students' thinking, and the questions that we ask are critical elements of deepening students' understanding. And we've worked on that, right? When we were talking about clarifying, eliciting, supporting, and extending questions. And let me just remind you, when you actually have a student in front of you doing the work, it's much easier to generate the question because you're listening to them as well as looking at what they're doing. So this is a quote from Intentional Talk from L.M. Kazemi and Allison Hintz. We want students to know that thoughtful mathematicians voice their confusions. Thinking collaboratively through errors can help everyone better understand the mathematics. We want to frame mistakes as desirable contributions. All right, guys, does this sound familiar? Have we been talking about collaborating? Have we been talking about partial understandings? Have we been talking about the power of mistakes and how they grow your brains? This book comes from the same philosophy. Mistakes are part of the process, but historically, they have not been validated. So we need to be extremely explicit as educators to make mistakes okay. We also want to display dispositions to do mathematics ourselves. Don't let your students know that you're nervous. You can be transparent and say, I'm not sure. But please don't ever say, I hate math, or I'm terrible at math. Because we want students to grow an identity that they don't know something yet, not that they're terrible at it or that they hate it. We want to be willing to explore, experiment, and make conjectures, recognize multiple solution paths, make connections among strategies, and monitor and reflect on their work. So just as I'm inviting you to reflect on your work, you can be inviting your students to reflect on theirs. So now we're going to think about what does this rehearsal look like for Prepare for the Share. So you had some wonderful examples in the book that you just read, and we're going to refer to those shortly. But before we do that, let's think about the intersection of ideas that inform the share. So from Children's Mathematics, another brilliant professional text that I highly recommend, the authors share principles for supporting student engagement in each other's mathematical thinking. So one of the things that happens in the share is it's not just about making somebody feel good because they get to share their strategy. In fact, you have decided specifically which strategies are going to be shared and in what sequence so that students can make connections between those strategies, add layers to their understanding, and develop more sophisticated thought paths. So during this time, students are also actively engaged in making sense of their colleagues' thinking. We want to develop a set of routines that support students to consistently engage in some way with each other's ideas. Sharing, number sense, and reasoning routines, great platforms to do that. We want to attend to the different levels at which particular students are engaging with each other's ideas. Are they getting specific? Are they general? Are they just saying like or dislike? The more specificity you can push for, the deeper the thinking. Follow up with students as they engage with each other's ideas to support students' engagement with the details of the strategy. Provide as many students as possible opportunities to engage with the student's idea or have other students engage with theirs. So this is one thing that I think is a practical matter for us as teachers. Keep track of who shares and make sure that before anybody gets a second turn, everybody's had at least one. And you might have to share some partial understandings or even an error, but that's okay. But you want to make sure that you honor each child's thinking in your class. It's incredibly important because the ones that share a lot, they will develop an identity that they are strong mathematicians, but the ones that don't will realize quickly that their ideas aren't as valued. So make sure you value everyone. You want to position students as experts about their strategies and as capable of engaging with other students about theirs. So if I select you to talk about your strategy, you need to be talking about your strategy, not me. You are the one that is explaining your thought process and answering questions about your thinking. And also, you want to position students to engage with each other's ideas on their own without your participation. So how does this look in partnerships? How does it look in small groups? Is it possible to even step out of a sharing conversation and allow students to engage in some authentic discourse around their thinking? It's very exciting when that happens. So again, looking at the problem-solving cycle, we look at student work analysis. We do analysis of student work. We look at the standards. We design rigorous, fun, authentic, and engaging tasks. We anticipate student thinking. We work through the unpack and launch. We give the students think time, time for turning and talking, time for productive struggle, and solving time. We also confer and monitor with students, eliciting, clarifying, supporting, and extending questions where appropriate. We observe what they're doing with their paper and pencil and what they're doing with their manipulatives. And finally, we select who is going to share. We sequence those strategies in an order that makes sense to help bridge connections from one to the next. And then we have the student talk about their thinking in the sharing process. So as was discussed in Intentional Talk, there is an open strategy sharing protocol that we can follow that helps us to prepare for the share. Now, when you are in your first year of teaching, this is a lot to do in one math situation. So what you might want to do is have your students solve the problem, collect their work, and then during your planning time before the next math session, you can craft the open strategy sharing protocol and make sure that you have selected meaningful strategies to share with your students. So this is what we're going to be working through today. Before we do that, I want you to engage in this problem because we want to be authentic about this work. So we're going to solve a problem. You're going to solve it in at least 2 ways. You're going to get together with your breakout room, and then you're going to share your strategies. Your strategies will be the anticipated strategies for the student thinking. Let's solve the problem first. On election day, candidate A receives 879 votes. They need 2,345 votes to win the election. How many more votes does candidate A need to win the election? Let me ask you mathematicians. If candidate A already has 879 votes, and they need 2,345 votes to win the election, do they need more than 2,345 votes? That wouldn't really make sense, right? So I want you to think about how to solve this problem in 2 ways. Remember the rule, no standard algorithm from 565M candidates. Try and solve it the way you think a child would. You're going to share your strategies with your breakout room, which you will make on the Google Doc. I will show you in the next video how you're going to select your breakout room, and those will be your anticipated strategies. So we're going to go there on the next video.